Alright, I know it's been a while since I last posted. I dove into Beyond Light way more than I thought I would, and then I wanted to get a really good feeling and a lot of playtime on Stasis before making a thorough video like this. Now, if you haven't seen my original Titan video, I explained how to play it as competitively as possible, and I packed as much info as I could in about 20 minutes. And now, as I was making a Stasis version of that video, I realized that it's so important to understand all of the aspects and fragments before you even go down the road to try and make a build. It's truly incredible how much diversity Bungie has added with this type of a subclass. So in this video, you're going to learn in depth all about the 6 fragments that apply across any character, as well as the 2 Titan aspects. For beginners, this will help you decide what you should unlock first, but for veterans who think they know how all of these things already work, I think you'll learn a lot from the detail that I go into. In that second video, I'll go through everything I choose on the Stasis page, my armor mods, the build and loadout that I choose and why, what synergies exist and work best together, and what stat distribution I ended up landing on. So let's just get to it. I want to make one thing clear. Outside of all the cool new tricks and perks and all that stuff that came with this DLC, the main concept introduced from a PvP perspective was slowing and freezing. Their names are pretty self-explanatory, but starting with the slow effect, it can be triggered in a number of different ways. And what it does is it makes your character a dumpster. For me, I can melee somebody and then activate some slowing. That by default lasts about 1.5 seconds, but it can change with other perks that we'll talk about later. You know, movement is the #1 skill gap in this game, and so anything that prevents you from being able to move is basically the ultimate handicap. It also does other things to you. One of those is Bungie saying that it makes your accuracy worse. I haven't actually personally noticed this, but your handling and reload completely tanks. So again, the main point is that you're moving slow. The second aspect I mentioned was freezing. Instead of just slowing you down, it puts you on a full-on pause in whatever position your character was in for about that same 1.5 seconds. Bungie says it's 1.35, but effectively you have about 2 seconds of interruption where you can't do anything. There's an initial damage of 20 when you freeze someone, and then when they break out, they actually take more damage a second time, the latter of which scales with resilience, capping out at 9. So at 0 resilience, you would take 90 damage when you break out, but at 9 resilience, you take a lot less. I've got a lot of numbers that I'm showing you throughout the video, so for this one, I'm just going to show you this quick snippet from Reddit, and full credit goes to the original poster named Hawkmuna Matata, which is an epic name, by the way. And before moving on, don't go screaming to your grandmother saying max resilience is the play, because if you're frozen in the first place, you're likely dead anyway. But we will talk about resilience a little bit later. Now, all of the freezing got some pretty intense backlash from the community in week 1 of Beyond Light, so Bungie's actually already tuned a lot of it down, and the info I'm presenting is current to the video's publish date. Now, before jumping into the Stasis page, I just wanted to bring up the Discord. We started the Discord back in the fall, and we've grown to about 500 members so far. If you're ever interested in talking or helping out with tests like this, or you're just looking for a group to play with, I've left a link down below. We'd love to have you, and there's a lot of knowledgeable people in the Discord, so I hope to chat with you in there, but back to the video. When you first unlock this, you begin with the same shield and jump as before, but they give you a different grenade called Ice Wall, or actually, that's just what I call it, and instead of a subclass perk tree, you get this mega melee and a new super. Because of this, it didn't actually seem particularly stellar immediately after getting it, other than being new and flashy, of course. But the real playing potential comes with all of the unlockables and the incredible synergy between them. Beginning with the melee, we currently have one option. Who knows if all those empty slots are them trying to future-proof themselves, but either way, one is all we need. It's sort of like a shoulder charge, but A, it doesn't require a sprint. B, it has incredible directional control. C, it actually has timing control. And then remember, it does take up your charge if you miss. It hits for 105 damage, so it may not be as lethal as something like Knockout at 160, but the fun factor, my god.
If there's a scale from 1 to even, I can't.
Seriously, this thing has incredible utility once you master it. For context, let's not forget that the regular melee is around 5.5 meters. With Knockout on Striker, you could get that up to about 7 meters, or then there's things like Synthos, but the Titan Stasis melee starts with an 11-meter range. That's when you just simply tap the button. And the cherry on top is that if you hold the melee button, you can extend that up to 17 meters. Okay, the best way to think of this is sort of like fighting lions. With that gun, you shoot it and hold down the left click button, and when you want it to explode, you let go of the left click. It's no different here. You press and hold melee and you'll start to lunge towards your opponent, and then as you're approaching that target, you just let go and let it finish that last couple of meters via the punching animation. It can also go vertical too, so if someone's above you and you aim at them at the end of your melee lunge, it'll connect. I friggin' love it. Onwards to the grenades, you have 3 options at the moment. You have what I like to call the ice wall, the dusk field, and then cold snap. Now the ice wall extends perpendicular to wherever you throw it. So if you hit the ground, it'll go up. If you hit the wall, it'll go sideways. But there are scenarios where it'll do something different. Taking a look at a clip from my buddy Patty Cakes, you'll see here he throws it up on the wall and it only sticks out 1 crystal. Which, by the way, if you're a sniper, you can use this to your advantage to get different angles. But like I was saying, if it's on a curved wall, it often only throws 1. But then if you throw it on a wall where there's clearly no space for all 5 crystals, sometimes it'll just wrap around like this. If you throw it in a corner, it might just fill the whole corner up. This thing is a lot taller than a barricade, and it extends outward in both directions, meaning wherever your grenade hits is going to be the center point. The total width is around 8 meters, so that extension is 4 meters on either side of where it hits. Based on my own quick tests, I think these things have 125 HP per crystal. I'm no Mercury, so you can confirm that if you want, but I'm pretty sure it's around there. But for Titans, that's where the Cryoclasm aspect comes into play, which we're going to talk about soon. When you throw this thing down, if someone is within 2 meters of those extremities, they'll freeze. And what that actually means is that if you hit the ground, as long as they're within 6 meters from where your grenade hit, they'll end up getting frozen. From there, you can either kill them or you can just smash through the crystals to finish them off, because you get the crystal damage plus the fact that they're frozen. But let's say there's someone just on the other side of the crystal or nearby. Well, these things also have AoE damage, but we're going to dive into that a lot later because it's very useful. Oh, and you can also boost yourself up for some pretty fun plays. Now the Duskfield grenade is like a mini dome. You throw it and it'll sort of grab anyone nearby, like a strong gravity. The dome itself is 5 meters in radius, meaning it's 10 meters wide, but it actually has a non-visual grab as well. The gravity extends 4 meters outside of the actual dome. So what that means is if you hit your grenade on the ground, anyone from within 9 meters of that will get sucked towards the Duskfield grenade. They won't freeze immediately. What they end up getting is this frozen scale that counts up from 0 to 10. Then they'll freeze. And it's about a 3.5 second window from that initial grab where they get sucked in, and then their counter goes up to the point at which they freeze. It is worth noting though that it's not impossible to escape this thing. An Icarus dash can do it, or even the Titan melee, for example. It does damage over time, and it's kind of like the shield in that it can't kill you with that slowing effect. So let's say someone's one shot and you throw your grenade at them, it won't actually finish them off. For me personally on a Titan, this is not the grenade to be using, but I've seen some hunters make good use of them with their melee technique. Last but not least is Cold Snap. This was the king at the release of Beyond Light. It truly is an amazing grenade. Wherever you throw it, it'll seek the nearest enemy for 12 meters. So a lot further than the reach of a Duskfield grenade, for example, and the damn thing tracks. Everyone knows that this grenade was nerfed, but it actually wasn't nerfed with its directional ability or the distance at which it tracks. It's still 12 meters just like it was before. The difference now is that it's 23% slower than what it used to be. And it's actually been super noticeable. So I personally think it was a really good change. Now that I've been accustomed to Stasis, it's not that bad to avoid as long as you're playing smart, but it is still deadly as this thing will wrap around corners, go on the wall, or anywhere. Like I said, instead of a regular perk tree, Bungie has broken out Stasis perks into 2 categories, aspects and fragments. Think of aspects as your character abilities, while fragments are enhancements that happen to be the same for Hunter, Warlock, and Titan. Right now, everyone has 2 aspects. Titan's first one is called Cryoclasm? I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you think I fucked that up. It boosts your slide big time. An original Titan slide was 5 meters. If you slapped on dunes, you could bump that up to 7, but those are rookie numbers, and Cryo pumps that all the way up to 9 meters now. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to stack with dunes, but that's fine. I still love those things. Now, not only is your slide 80% further, but it's also 35% faster. You can feel it right away. You're covering that gap a lot quicker, which we all know encourages more shotgun aping, but that's okay as long as you're aware of it. You get 2 in a row, and then you have a 3-second cooldown before you can do another 2. The other bonus to this ability is breaking crystals. This comes in clutch so many times. The second aspect is called Tectonic Harvest. When I first got it, I kind of thought, it's nothing special, but I was dead wrong, and it ended up completely changing my build for the better. Whenever you shatter a crystal, it creates a shard for you and your whole team. An ice wall, for example, doesn't count as just 1 crystal. It's actually 5 crystals stacked next to each other. So 1 ice wall can give 5 shards. Picking it up gives you a jolt of melee energy. Here you can see my teammate walking over them, and they remain visible for me because I haven't picked them up yet. So it's not a first come first serve type thing. The melee energy per shard is 10% of your melee box. So after you use your melee, that box goes gray, and then you're used to watching it kind of slowly fill up until it turns blue again, right? Well, think of it as every time you pick up a shard, it'll just fill up exactly 1/10 of that box. It's worth noting that the boost is not relative to your strength. Whether or not you have 10 tier strength, which would be 100 stat in the strength category, or 0 tier strength, the shard will give you 1/10 of that box. And what that means is that if you have really, really high strength, the shards are less valuable than if you have lower strength. That doesn't mean they're bad. They're still amazing. But all I'm getting at is, let's say you ran 100 strength. That means your cooldown is 32 seconds to get your melee back. Well, each shard ends up cutting just over 3 seconds. Now, if you had 0 strength, your cooldown is 97 seconds to get your melee back, which just means that that 10% boost is a lot bigger. And as a result, you'd cut off 10 seconds for every shard you walked over in that case. All in all, it's the same logic as the super mods before Beyond Light. Now, one thing to remember is that the ice wall doesn't last forever. It stays around for about 15 seconds and then it'll disappear, and so will your opportunity to get those shards. But if you crack the ice wall and don't get the shards right away for some reason, you actually have another 25 seconds after doing that until those disappear. Okay, on to the fragments. Number 1, Hedrons. When you equip that, you're going to lose 10 strength in your gear stats, but you're going to gain 25% damage boost after you freeze someone. You don't have to kill them. Simply the act of freezing someone does the trick. Now, I've never been one to go down the deep rabbit hole of what buffs together and what doesn't buff together. In fact, I think there's a website out there dedicated to just that, or some sort of Excel sheet. I'll try and find the link and put it in the description. But I was curious about Hedrons, Kill Clip, Rampage, and Charger Light. Based on my tests, Hedrons and Charger Light do not stack. Maybe that's because it considers them both armor buffs or something. I don't really know. Don't quote me on that. But taking a 120, for example, Kill Clip will bring it up from 90 to 120. Then Kill Clip with Charger Light brings it up to 144. Kill Clip with Hedrons, however, brings it up to 150. Then I thought I would check just one stack of Rampage, and again on a 120, Charged brings it up from 90 to 108, but Charged with Rampage will bring it up to 119. Hedrons and Rampage brings it up to 124. Looking at something like the Thorn, you can go from doing 70 precision and 1 tick damage to 88 precision and 8 tick damage when you combine Devour and Hedrons. The main question you have to ask yourself is, how often are you getting someone frozen in your gameplay? But we're going to save that for video 2. Fissures. There's no stat change on this one when you equip it. It increases the blast radius from shattering a crystal. So you know how I talked about the AoE on these things, damaging people nearby? Well, this thing boosts that range, plus it adds more damage when you do it. It was a bit annoying doing the tests on this one, so I'm just going to show you this line thing. By default, if the enemy is within 1 meter of the crystal getting shattered, it'll hit them for 84 damage. The max range is around 5 meters, and if they're standing that far away, it'll hit them for about 46, so roughly half. Putting Fissures on helped way more than I thought it would. Within that same 1 meter distance, it adds 50% damage, so it does 126 instead of 84. At that same 5 meter mark, it was doing 78 instead of 46, and then it actually extends another 4 meters, meaning anyone within 9 meters of that crystal will take damage of around 20 to 30. That may seem like baby bitch numbers, but I cannot count how many times I've slid through a crystal and then mapped somebody with my shotty because they had 25 less health. On to Refraction. No stat change here either, but killing slowed or frozen targets gives you class energy. Testing it out, it works the same way as the melee situation, just a straight bump, and instead of 10%, it's 15%. So again, the same logic applies. If you have really high resilience, it's less valuable. If you have low resilience, it's more valuable, but either way, it sucks. Maybe for a hunter, it's more useful because of the blades that slow people down, and I could stand to be corrected, because I will admit I'm impressed by how many weird builds that Kamicake seems to come up with when it comes to resilience. He's pretty darn creative, but moving on. Next up is Whisper of Durance. This one gives you a 10 strength boost to your gear stat, and it makes your slowing effects last longer. This is not to be confused with freezing. The freezing stays at that 1.35 seconds that Bungie mentioned, but if I hit someone with my Titan melee, for example, their slow time goes from that 1.35 up to about 3.5 seconds. Whisper of Shards, a boost of 10 resilience when you equip it, and when you shatter crystals, it shortens your grenade cooldown. This one doesn't work like the melee one. It isn't an insta boost to that box, but rather it starts this 5-second window of time where your grenade charges faster. Initially, it seemed useless because it's only 5 seconds, but one ice wall can give you 5 of these things, so that's 25 seconds worth. Now, they did balance that a bit by capping it at 10 seconds. So if you break one crystal, you're going to get this 5-second countdown timer on the left-hand side of your screen. If you break another, it's going to add 5 seconds. So let's say by the time you do that, it was at 3 seconds. Well, it'll go back up to 8. But then let's say you broke another one right away when it was at 7 or 8 seconds. It'll only go up to 10. And that was a pretty fair balance in my opinion, because realistically in the middle of the game, I'm not really concerned about trying to optimize getting one shard at a time. I'm just going to blast through the whole ice wall and keep going. So if I break through 5 crystals, it's not going to give me 25 seconds. It'll actually only give me 10 seconds. But here's the catch. It's so fast, and it's relative to your discipline level. At 0 discipline, it'll charge 400% faster, while at 10 discipline, it charges nearly 600% faster. It's extremely noticeable. Last but not least is bonds. I had to really think about this one. At face value, it sounds amazing because with the fact that they've gotten rid of all those super mods like pump action or remote connection, anytime you can get additional super and get a stasis super earlier is incredible. But the catch is that you're losing 10 intellect and 10 discipline. Now, if you haven't seen my super mod video, I highly recommend you go and watch that. It explains the logic on how to make decisions with situations like this. What I needed to figure out was how much of a boost to your intellect does it give you on a kill versus the regular amount of super that you get from a kill, and is it more worth it than the 10 intellect? The discipline part I have to leave up to you and what your build is all about, but I'll start with this. If you take an image of your game and you measure the length of the super bar, you can see how many pixels it is, and that's a really good baseline because then you can look at how fast your super charges. That gray bar gets bumped up and it's highlighted extra white, showing me 15 pixels worth of boost. So that means every time I get a regular kill, I'm gonna get 15 units of super, we'll say. Now when I have bonds on and get a regular kill, it's no different. It's still just that same 15 pixel boost. And that's because bonds needs you to kill frozen targets. So if I kill a frozen target, the boost goes from the 15 pixels up to 40 pixels, meaning it's giving anywhere from 2.5 to 3 times more super energy every time you kill a frozen enemy. For PvE, maybe that's incredible, but for PvP, you start to ask yourself, well, how often am I killing a frozen target? And on top of that, no matter what your intellect is, it's always just going to give you that 40 pixel boost. If I'm at 10 intellect and my super is charging really, really fast, then getting a bit of a boost like 40 units instead of 15 units on a kill isn't really that big of a deal because I'm probably going to cover that gap pretty quickly with my really high super recharge rate. So at the end of the day, Whisper of Bonds becomes less valuable the higher intellect you have, or in other words, more valuable the lower intellect you have. But I still wasn't satisfied with that. So I actually nerded out and made a table. If someone can teach my boomer ass how to put an Excel sheet out there on Reddit online somewhere where everyone can use it freely, join the Discord and let me know how. And I'm going to walk you through how it works. All right, this column right here is just how many seconds your cooldown is at whatever level of intellect that you have. This column right here shows the 15 pixels that you gain every time you get a regular kill, meaning when you get that kill, you cut this many seconds off of it. At 10 intellect, a regular kill only cuts 7.7 seconds off of the time until you get your super. This right here is the Whisper of Bonds equipped. It's got the 40 pixels instead of 15, and so at 0 intellect, a frozen kill will literally cut off 37 seconds from your super time. So I set up a mini scenario and you'd have to play with it depending on what you think your numbers are. I didn't look at any match history, I just wanted to see how this would look. I figured let's pretend I get 6 regular kills and 1 ice kill before I get my super. So 7 kills total. Well, let's go and take a look at my current intellect, which is 6. That means in that scenario, if I did not have bonds, it would take me 212 seconds until I got my super. This makes sense because the usual cooldown is 275 seconds to get the super. I got 7 kills. The ice one is not special because this is the without bonds scenario and it ends up at 212 seconds. Now, if I look at the scenario where I equip bonds, we know that it actually drops us down to 5 intellect. So I'm going to compare it to this number. That's how this table works. Every single number here focuses like that. And this is telling me that if I got 6 regular kills at an intellect of 5 on my character, but 1 ice kill at an intellect of 5 on my character, I would get my super in 206 seconds. So the question for me is, do I get an ice kill before my super every single time? Is that 6-second gap worth it to also go down 10 in my discipline? I don't know, probably not. But maybe you're somehow an ice killing machine and you're saying, no, my 7 kills are usually 4 regular and 3 ice. Well, now you can see that that's actually way different. 212 versus 174. That's a big difference and could easily swing the momentum in a trials match, for example. I just don't think you're going to get 3 ice kills every single time. Now, I really encourage you to play around with all the different combinations of fragments so that when I release my next video, you can come in and compare, or we can even discuss differences between my build or your build. And now what you're seeing on screen is a clip from my competitive Titan guide. This video with the thumbnail on the top right-hand corner is going to teach you exactly how you should play Titan competitively. And while a lot of the abilities will change with Stasis, many of the concepts remain the same. I hope you all have a good one, and I'll catch you in my next video.